We're going to be talking about the Twilight franchise. So, first of all, we're starting off with would Edward and would Bella was Bella better or worse with Edward or Jacob? Of course, she I feel like obviously we know that she wanted not to live anymore. Like, she was in a place where she kind of just wanted to choose like eternal life instead of being with Jacob. I know that I think to myself every time I think about it, I think that Jacob is the better choice. And I think about how like he's a better choice because obviously he cared about her more, and he just had loads of different stuff that he had. And I think what was crazy about Bella's mentality was that she saw it as that one monster was better than the other, and that I think in the grand scheme I feel like Bella would have been in danger regardless. Like, there was something I read even earlier which was about the fact that even if Bella had not gotten pregnant, which, like, obviously if she had ended up with Jacob instead of Edward and she hadn't got pregnant, she would have obviously been human and she would have been able to stay human, and obviously there might have been not much of a risk on her life, but I feel like she would still be in danger. She'd still be in danger, like, for like the Volturi, because the Volturi didn't like that she had knowledge of them and knew things about them. Like, I guess if you think about it though, she wouldn't have known Edward, so would she really also have knowledge of Jacob which I mean of vampires, I mean in general? She probably wouldn't have, because it's like I feel like she would have obviously been living practically an average life. She also, another thing, she wouldn't have been as ostracized from her friendship group as she was when she was with Edward. And that was a main thing that I always reflected on in the films, that we see the fact that like she becomes so like enamored, that's even the word she uses in the film, she becomes enamored with Edward, and then it's like because she's so enamored she doesn't see her friends, she doesn't see her friends, she doesn't even hang out with like Charlie, or she obviously, even in the first movie, it's like she doesn't want to hang out with Charlie because he's not cool, and obviously she rather wants to, like, she enjoyed being with her mom. But I think even when I read the first book, I didn't read the whole thing, but I read like some of the first book. It's because everyone, when we talk about the book, I feel like Edward is different in the movie than he is in the book. And I think that's very annoying, because it's like, why would you change a character to be a certain way? Like, you want the character that you like learn to read, to be honest. And I think with also, like, I guess with a lot of different franchises, even just aside from Twilight, you think of like, I don't know, Divergent or Hunger Games, and also Harry Potter. And also, like, because obviously shout out to Stephanie Meyer, because she is like, I feel like she's not like a what do you call it, she's not a controversial author. Like, I feel like obviously we know that J.K. Rowling, like, she's a controversial author, the way that she has all these different views. And it's so interesting because I feel like when a author makes a world, a kind of, yeah, like world building, and creates a whole different world for us to dive into, it's like we see that it's like, how could you have those views that you have, but you've decided to create this great story, especially even like, yeah, especially even, I guess, again with the J.K. Rowling, even with her writing Harry Potter, and we're like, she has so many different views that you think none of the kids in Harry Potter would actually have. But it's another thing, because that whole author thing is just like, I think like authors somehow have these weird things, but they're still able to create good stories. I think people also talk about the Game of Thrones guy. I think his name is, isn't it like Peter, or sorry, no, actually it's like sorry, hold on, the author. His name, yes, George R. Martin. And they always make fun of George, actually, because they talk about how, like, he's really, like, strange. I don't know. I've seen that so many different times. Yeah, so he's had, like, lots of, like, obviously, sexual violence, sorry, obviously in his plots and just in general. But it's like, I feel like Stephanie Meyer, like, let's even search her up on Google now, to be fair, and we'll see. And we probably won't get anything. We won't get any kind of reference. Oh, but okay, fun fact, Stephanie Meyer's Twilight series and her own conduct have generated considerable controversy. Criticism has focused on the perceived sexism and problematic relationship dynamics in the books, particularly the portrayal of Bella's character and her relationship with Edward. Additionally, Meyer has faced plagiarism accusations regarding Breaking Dawn. Controversies include her depiction of the Quaalude tribe and her comments on LGBT issues. That's so strange. I think, okay, so it breaks it down obviously in parts, like Google always does this. Sexism and abuse, and that many critics argue that Twilight romanticizes unhealthy and potentially abusive relationships. Bella is often depicted as passive, dependent, and solely focused on Edward. But that's even obviously a point that I just brought up anyways, that she obviously, we see her practically like meet Edward and like cling on to him, and it's like she literally just met him like in the first few minutes. I think people always actually, in the debate of Edward versus Jacob, people talk about the fact that Jacob's also her childhood friend as well. So they talk about how it's more natural, it's more like flowing. Like, I think, yeah, the childhood trope is very, like, it's a very good one. Aside from like all those others, like enemies to lovers and all those other tropes, I feel like, I feel like the childhood trope is one of those ones that are really special because the two people obviously grow up together and they obviously then gain feelings for each other. So it's more different than, I guess, Bella like coming to meet Edward, seeing that he's not really interested in her and kind of just like throwing herself into their relationship, throwing herself into just the whole entire thing. Like, I guess she in a way, obviously she starts being, well, obsessed, and then her obsession leads to her researching about who Edward is. But I feel like on this point that I'm on right now, I feel like in conclusion, she literally would have been in danger anyways. And whether or not she wanted to be a werewolf or like, yeah, a werewolf, vampire, or human, like it probably would not have mattered because it's like she still would have been affected, I guess, by the knowledge of knowing that supernatural people even exist. So it's like with Jacob, she still would have obviously found out that all these things exist. It still would have been the exact same way of how in New Moon, she obviously realizes that Jacob is a werewolf and he isolates himself from her, and then obviously it's still the same thing. She's still learning all these things that she hadn't known before, and then it's like knowledge gets you killed, I suppose. Like, I feel like that's what happens. So it's just like, in conclusion, and actually I think obviously this is something I've said in prior episodes, but it's like I feel like with love triangles anyways, there's not a better like option. It's like both people are like, you know, both are into that main character, but it's like either or, they both have traits that you would think are not what you're looking for. Like, it's because it's just like Bella's whole, like I said before, Bella's whole thing about which one was the better monster was weird because they were both dangerous. Like, Edward told her that he killed people, and she was just like, oh, okay. Like, she did not care that he killed people, but she was more annoyed when Jacob said that he killed people, and we were like, that mentality makes no sense because obviously both people both of them kill people, but you're less okay with the one that's like actually like, because I feel like also with the werewolves, or I feel like, I guess no, both of them have a diet where it's like they have to kill people, but it's just like, I think with the werewolves, they go after the bad guys, like they go after vampires, like obviously they go after even, what's her name, they go after Victoria, so I feel like it works way better. Anyways, moving on. So I also recently, or I guess actually not too recent, but I did do a Twilight quiz with my friends, and that was like really it was okay. I thought I knew Twilight better than I did, but it turns out that I didn't. I think when I realized, or when I was at the quiz, it made me realize that like obviously a lot of things that people know about Twilight is from the book, and I think that like if you, or no, actually before the quiz actually, I prepped myself to have to do a quiz on BuzzFeed, and then BuzzFeed was like, but the BuzzFeed's quiz is, yeah, they usually always test you on the book, and I was like, oh, I didn't know all of these different things. Like, I guess fun fact, I didn't know that like Alice had a sister, and I was like, they never say that like in the movie, but that's again because it's from the book, and then if you haven't read the book, then you don't know a lot of the different stories. And I think also how I was thinking, also when I was thinking about this episode, I was thinking about, they only tell us about Jasper. They only tell us about Jasper and Rosalie's vampire transformation. They don't tell us about any of the others. And then I guess of course Edward, but they would of course tell us his, because that's pretty standard, pretty normal, that they would tell us his whole journey, but they obviously don't tell us they don't tell us any of the other siblings. But obviously that's the funny thing, isn't it? It's like you say that the Cullens are siblings, but they're not actually siblings, because obviously they're all like together, like in the first movie when Anna Kendrick goes together, like you can see that they I think people were already catching on that none of them were actually related. And then that's the funny thing with like New Moon. Obviously New Moon's like, oh, Edward's like, oh, people are noticing the difference, and people are being like, oh, Carlisle looks older than he is. But that was all like, even in that film, I think that was all a lie. He was just pushing Bella away, and that was basically it. But anyways, back to the Twilight quiz. There was also a husky dog there at that quiz, and that was really cool because it felt like Jacob was in the room with us, even though obviously he wasn't. And then me and my friends scored around like 40 out of 65, 40 something at least. But I know that lots of other people, they got like, yeah, nearer to like 65. Like that was few. You obviously had to get like majority to be first place. And I still think, like, honestly, I generally think that me and my friends did all right. Like, I just think that like these things happen, and like quizzes can be really difficult because obviously, unless, I mean, of course I did prepare. That's the funny thing. I did prepare and I still didn't get like the top marks. It's just, but again, what I said that was to do with is that was to do with the books. Like lots of my research that I did prior to that quiz, it was me researching what's it called? Yeah, it was me getting questions from the book. So it was like all my research kind of didn't pay off, because then it was like I had all these answers, for questions that weren't asked at the quiz. And then I think at the quiz they did ask pretty good questions, because it was like, for example, they did ask like, what's it called? Like, who's that character? And that's always a good round to play, because it's like, you can obviously guess the characters in these movies. And if you're like me, who's obviously watched these movies like a lot of the time, like, or have watched them repeatedly. That's why actually I was bummed that I didn't do that well, because it's like I've literally watched the Twilight movies so many times. Like, I feel like I'm a bit of or I felt like I was an expert in them, and then turns out I did not win, and I was like, oh, that's really shocking. And it's like I don't also meet actually a lot of people who like are into Twilight. I guess, yeah, me and my friends, we are into it, but like there's not a lot of people who are also into that show as well. I mean, movie, they're not into that movie as well, like as in somebody who's like obsessed with it, and yeah, obsessed with that as I am, as in watching the movies repeatedly. And whenever it gets cold, it's time to stick that movie on. And I guess also when it gets to autumn, because this is the thing, like summer is actually almost over, and it will actually be the right possible time to sit down and put these movies on and have a marathon. I feel like, anyways, like now just saying that, I probably should do that one of these days. I feel like I should do a marathon with my friends and watch those movies all in one go. And I think it's like watching the Harry Potter films, even though one little thing, the Harry Potter films I feel are a different kind of story, because or no, actually it's the same thing. Twilight feels like it needs to be watched in a specific season, and I feel like some of the Harry Potter films also feel like that too. Like I feel like what film is it? Obviously, I think, Philosopher's Stone, the first one. The first Harry Potter film is obviously best at Christmas. And obviously, that's the only time you can really watch it. And then I think, like, Goblet of Fire and all of the others, they're a bit like in the middle. You could probably watch them whenever, actually, to be honest. You could generally sit down and watch them whenever. But I think, like, probably the ones that are the most... It's weird, because when I think about Harry Potter, I was going to say the ones that are the most happy. But because Philosopher's Stone is super special. That's why it's a Christmassy one. And then I feel like the ones when the film starts getting dark, which is like from Goblet of Fire onwards, the films get super dark. And then it's like the only best time you can really watch them is, in cold weathers, to be honest. I even just want to quickly check that, because obviously I think to myself, like, you think to yourself, when is the best time to even watch them? See, Philosophers, like I said, Christmas, Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets is actually whenever, actually, I can't lie. And then Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, that's again cold season. The next one, Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, cold season again. Order of Phoenix is cold season again. And also, Blood Prince, cold season. And then Deathly Hallows Part 1, Part 2, they again are cold season. It's like, I just feel like some movies obviously are very specific. Even though, don't take my word on it, because I feel like with movies you can literally watch them whenever you want. Like, who makes the rules in watching films? You can actually watch them whenever you want, and whenever you're in the mood to as well. And I feel like because Harry Potter is like legendary, that like, because Harry Potter is legendary, it's one of those films that you should just stick on whenever you want to watch them. And it's the same with Twilight, because even like a film, like one of the Twilight films, for example, I guess like I want to say Eclipse. I feel like Eclipse, you want to watch that, again. You want to watch it also, I think, for a note, you want to watch it at night. Anyways, it's very interesting. Like, I feel like my brother and stuff like that, my family always has rules about specific times when you should watch films, and depending on what the subject topic is and whether it's a dark film or it's a light freely one. And if it's a light freely one, then you're gonna have to close the curtains. I don't do it that way though, but I understand what they mean, because I just mean, of course, that works out. Anyways, next section is Bella loving Jacob but choosing eternal life. Obviously, we see that exactly she has feelings for him on and off. And I think something that I read today earlier was that we can see that she loves Jacob more in the books. Again, I wouldn't know because I didn't read them, but obviously that's what I found out. And I found out that obviously it's like in the movies, you see her all absorbed about Edward, and I feel like it's one of those, because like, again, with love triangles, it's one of those where it feels one-sided, and it's like you can sometimes even forget that, like, you can even forget that there's a love triangle going on. And those obviously are my favorite love triangles, because I just hate when they're like, I hate when they're too much in your face. I kind of want it to be a thing where if they are there, that I can't really tell that the other guy is really into her all that much. And that's the thing, because Bella doesn't, in the movies anyways, Bella doesn't give Jacob like a chance at all. I mean, he might look at it as she gave him mixed signals, like, I don't know, leaning on him in the car, or being like, oh, Jacob, you're so good looking, like when she fell off the bike. So I guess, yeah, you could say she gave him mixed signals, and that's probably it. But apart from that, it's all her into Edward, like 24 out of 7, like that is basic 24/7. It's just Edward, like, you know what I mean? Even obviously first film, we can see how much she's obsessed with him, because she's like, oh, I was completely and irrevocably in love with him. And I was like, irrevocably? I didn't even know what that word meant when I first watched Twilight. I didn't know what irrevocably even meant. But like, even now, let's even for the class, let's even search the word, search the meaning of irrevocably, in a way that cannot be changed, reversed, or recovered. Oh, that's deep. She was like, oh, meeting Edward changed her life. So I mean, of course she's right though, because of course her meeting Edward took a complete spin on her life, as I said earlier. That's why it's like, although Edward, I don't know. I was going to say, oh yeah, what team am I? But yeah, me being on Team Edward, sometimes I still think to myself, like, she was too obsessed with him, and she was too in love with him. Like, obviously we even see that again in New Moon. Like, he leaves and her whole world falls apart, and she does nothing but mopes about in her room and like scream at night. And we're like, poor Charlie, you know, he had to suffer with that the whole entire time, and he had no peace. Like, just no peace. He had to keep checking on her every single time, and that's why Charlie ended up hating Edward, I guess. But then I feel like Charlie hated Edward from the very beginning, if I'm honest. He was never team Edward, not even once. I feel like it's interesting, because even how people have been talking about The Summer I Turned Pretty, like, you can tell what side Belly's mum is on. But with Charlie, I feel like with Charlie it was immediately Jacob, and yeah, he just never liked Edward. Like, he just wasn't his vibe, and I get it. Like, this pale faced guy, and he's out here, like, I don't know, taking your daughter to go and play baseball in the cold, by the way, in the actually freezing cold. Like, oh, zip up your jacket and put your hat on, like, whatever. Like, actually, whatever. But anyways, and back to, again, the whole point is that yeah, she I feel like it is an on and off thing, but as I said in the movies, I just don't feel like she shows any kind of inkling that she's feeling Jacob. Like, it just doesn't give that at all. And then obviously she only lets him kiss her in, like, what's that, in like Eclipse, and that's like 3 episodes, 3 movies from the end. How crazy is that? And then after that, of course, he realizes that she doesn't want him, and then he decides to go on to Renesmee. But whatever. Even at the Twilight quiz, back to the Twilight quiz, that was really funny because they had a Renesmee. What did they have? They had a Renesmee meme picture and on the slideshow, and that was really funny because it was like the fact that like they decided to use CGI then was crazy. And I was always say this, that I feel like CGI is so weird because the craziest thing is that they'll put a big budget into a movie, but you don't want to get yourself a real life baby. Like, that's crazy. Nobody wants to see a CGI baby in any aspect, to be honest. Even like, okay, to throw in this reference, yeah, but Squid Game, and also watching Squid Game and seeing her baby, and her baby was CGI, and I kept saying this to people, and they were like, oh, like, why are you bothered about the CGI? But I said, why is that baby not real? Like, that's what I found it so strange, and I was like, they could have found a baby, but they didn't want to, and they just wanted to like hurt our eyes with looking at a baby that's not real. And it's annoying and I think the whole thing that I have with CGI anyways, I was gonna say I'm not anti CGI, but it's like, I think it's annoying when obviously a film is like, yeah, when a CGI is a blatantly obvious, that's really annoying. Because of course, if you're gonna use CGI, at least make it in a way that it doesn't look like it's CGI. Don't put it in front of me and then you're gonna tell me it's not CGI, but I know that it is. That's crazy. Because that's what I'm saying. They want me to believe that that's a real life baby, but I know it's not. So that's what really annoyed me. But then again, so then the second part anyways is that obviously it was blatantly obvious that even from the first page of Twilight anyways, or then actually also no, the opening sequence of Twilight, right? She's obviously like dying in the arms of someone I love. That would be the way to go, or whatever. So she says yeah, that would be the way to go. And so she's obviously, yeah, she has this whole thing with death, and we could obviously tell that from the very beginning, that she had this kind of idolized view of death, or that she just didn't want to die, basically. Not even to knock her though, because you know what I mean, why would anybody be excited to die? But it's just the way that, I guess that's why when I said about the love triangle thing, we saw that Jacob had no shot, because she wanted to live. She wanted to die so badly. Oh my gosh, sorry. I was looking at Bella Swan, and I was like, her face card like ate throughout all the films. Obviously, aside from part 1. That was crazy. But then again, we understand, because she was carrying a vampire baby. These things happen. She was carrying a vampire baby and it was sucking all the life out of her. So I literally get how her appearance dropped in those days. That was pretty normal. You know what I mean? Not even like, oh my gosh, yeah, I'm pregnant like with a standard normal baby, but she's pregnant with a vampire baby that's actually going to suck out everything that she has and like take away all her nutrients that she needs to live. Like, this is a crazy thing. Like, that's what I mean. And you do think about it, like Bella decided to choose that life over, like, I don't know, sitting across the fire listening to queer stories. We're like, hello, that sounds lovely. You know, every night you're having a bonfire, or I don't know what else you're doing, or you're either, I guess, chilling with the wolves. Like, why would you choose that instead of just why would you choose exactly getting knocked up and then being on the brink of death, when you could obviously choose being with Jacob, and you could actually just relax and chill, except you could be at danger, because of course that whole thing, oh yeah, remember with Sam's story, if you stand too close to him and you get scratched in the face, then that's one of those things, because they already warned you. So if you didn't listen, then that was actually your own. So obviously, yeah, that's why I said she just wasn't ever going to choose Jacob. And anyways, next bit now. A summary of each films. So obviously, I feel like for people, I was gonna say people who haven't watched Twilight, which would be crazy because where have you been? Twilight. Obviously, let's start from the beginning, right? Twilight came out in 2008. And obviously it's 12 a.m. and it's 2 hours and 10 minutes. Damn, sorry, I forgot that it was 2 hours and 10 minutes. I feel like it goes by very quickly. Especially this film anyways. It goes by very quickly. And then I guess the segments of the film, you've got, I don't know, Bella coming into Forks. You've got her meeting her new friendship group. You've got her meeting Edward. Then you've got her... you've got her meeting Edward. Then you've got her... sorry. I think I jumped over a bit, actually, also. No, you have her reuniting with Jacob. But that's in the, in the film. That's, I guess, in the very early bits. That's also when... in Twilight, when she slips over. That part's very funny. So she slips over on the ice. So you have that bit. And I guess... Obviously, I think exactly that's around that bit, I feel, when she meets Jacob and she gets that new car. But anyway, sorry. So anyway, summary of the first film, right, is that Bella's an average teenager who often goes unnoticed. However, her life changes for the better when she meets Edward Cullen, a vampire with dreamy eyes and skin that sparkles in sunlight. Okay, but that's Google's summary. I wanted to read out Google's summary for you guys, but then we'll do my own. So a Twilight summary for me is basically she meets Edward, this super pale guy. And she's also, she's flown in from, what's it called? I thought it was Arizona, because obviously it's Arizona. I'm sure it's Arizona, what's it called? Yeah, Arizona, Jacksonville. Hold on a second. Yeah, I think it's Arizona. It's Arizona, Jacksonville. Exactly, in Florida, right? So Bella is from Florida, and she was there with her mum and her mum's boyfriend. And then obviously the craziest thing, that's one thing. Again, let's pick this out, by the way, because movies sometimes don't make sense. Bella is from Arizona, Jacksonville, and the fact of the matter is she's that place was hot all of the time, and then we see her and we're like, she's extremely pale. What's going on with that? You'd think if she was out there all the time sunbathing, all this kinds of stuff, that she would obviously be fine. I feel like she would have been tanned, which was very weird. And that's something, that's even something the friendship group pointed out to her as well, because they were like, you're really pale. Even what was that girl's name? So Anna Kendrick's character, Jessica was obviously like, oh yeah, you're really pale. Didn't you? Yeah, wasn't you in Jacksonville? And we're like, what's up with your skin? That's what's crazy. And that's why, I guess that's the funniest thing with this film. She's pale, a lot of other people are pale, but then Forks is a very dreary place. So I think what's funny is she comes into Forks and it's she practically just blends in. She could actually, she could actually be a resident, even though she was not from there. That's what's crazy. So she comes into Forks, and she's moving in with her dad. Her and Charlie, they don't really have, I feel like I said earlier, they don't have a great relationship, but they made it work, I feel. They made it work enough in order to, I don't know, coexist. But so she's there with Charlie. Then she starts at the school, and I think, I forgot the school name. But that happens. The only other school that I've ever really remembered in film is Rydell High, but aside from that, you couldn't ask me any other school name and I wouldn't be able to tell you. And I don't know why it's in specific that it's Greece, but yeah, Forks High School. How boring. When a school is generally called it's called the town where it is. But think of a different name. Do you know what I mean? Because why would you? That means you were really lazy and you didn't want to put any thought into this school name at all. That's why like Rydell High stands out to me, because it's like, except, yeah, are they in Rydell? Bro, I think they are in Rydell, but I just feel like Rydell just sounds more like, maybe it sounds more hip. Maybe that's what my thing is. I think it sounds more hip and more intriguing. That's probably why. And then, okay, so again, still a summary on Twilight. So, yeah, she's there with Charlie. Then she meets the new group. Then the new group obviously does the introductions of all the Cullen children. Then, she sees Edward. They're like, oh my gosh, Edward's so cool. Like, wow, scary. And then I think, oh wait, but hold on, I probably jumped over it a bit anyways, because obviously before that, or is it after? Bro, funny thing, I haven't watched Twilight in such a long time. I'm due a rewatch anyways. Like I said, I'm due a rewatch for sure. But it's just like, if I had to say anything more about the first film, it's one of my favorites anyways, just to throw that in there, because I think my obviously top two are like, what's it called? Yeah, my top two are Twilight and New Moon. I feel like the rest are all good, but I just like those two in particular. Like, I think for me, I like the drama, the dramatics, like the fact that that Bella comes into this place and like she meets Edward and she realizes he's a vampire, and then she also has to navigate, like, yes, living in a new town, being the new girl, because that's the thing, like, her coming in being a new girl, it's like she gets all this attention, everyone wants to be her friend, which is like, hello, that's crazy. But yeah, everyone wants to be her friend. And then she's also like, she's also obviously then into Edward, wanting to figure Edward out. Edward also wants to figure her out as well, although he can't read her mind, so that's one of those things. So he was obviously never going to be able to get into her mind. But then moving on to Twilight, I feel like, I wanted to, if I was going to do a summary like this, I kind of basically more wanted it to be like one worded, but it's just that I feel like, I spoke a long time about Twilight because, again, that's one of my favorites. But then, okay, let's move on to Twilight New Moon. Okay, so Twilight New Moon is like, obviously in the first film we see Edward and Bella like dance together at prom, and that prom was so cool. Like, why didn't my prom look like that? But moving on, they were what's it called, so they were dancing together at the end. Then also at the end of the film we see Victoria, which is obviously foreshadowing, and I love foreshadowing, bro. I love foreshadowing so much. Foreshadowing is so good because it's like, it just sets up the next film, and that's just so exciting for me. I'm just like, if they ever took foreshadowing out, I'd be so upset. They always, because I think foreshadowing works so well, they always want to just throw you into things, like they just want to throw you in there, not even give you any kind of indication or warning, and I think that's crazy. I don't want to be thrown into ongoing traffic. I want to know what's gonna happen next. And I'm actually one of those people anyways. I think, like, exactly, my mom says this about me, that I just like to know when the next thing is going to happen. And I have to know, otherwise it's going to eat me up and then I won't be able to get to sleep. So that's a whole big issue, but it's just true. I guess I don't have good patience. That's my main thing. So we see Victoria at the end, and then although we see Victoria at the end, so Twilight New Moon, right? Again, so let's dive into what Google says, right? Edward enters a relationship with Bella and moves away after he realizes that the Cullens are a threat to her life. Bella slips into depression, but Jacob helps her cope with her feelings. So that's why, I guess, in this film, this really shows us how much Jacob cares about her, which obviously is really great. Like, obviously we could see he cared about her in the first film, but I just mean in New Moon, it's like he hangs out with her all the time and he helps to like ease her worries. Although I also feel like he doesn't do a stellar job. He should have been on he should have been on suicide watch, because every moment, every minute, every moment, Bella just wanted to off herself. And it was like, you obviously wasn't doing that good a job, because she was still being able to go out and do it. So in this film, you have her doing the bike thing, then you have her jumping off the cliff, and then I guess, is there another one? No, okay, fine. Those are the two main ones, okay? I think, because no, she goes on that bike with that stranger, so that's number one. Then number two is her jumping off. Wait, no. Then number two, is her going on that motorbike herself, that Jacob obviously fixes for her. Like, Bella, where the hell have you been, Luca? Sorry, I had to say it because, yeah, it just was necessary. It fitted, and I'm also on this film, so it fits the thing that we're on right now. So he says that they fix up the bike, and then she goes on to, then you have the third one. So yes, the third one, where then the third one is her last final straw, which is her jumping off the cliff. And she's like, because she saw those people, she saw the wolves doing that whole, like, I think it's moon diving. Yeah, it's called moon diving, right? So she saw them doing it, and she was like, oh, well, I want to do it too. And then she decides she wants to jump off the cliff as well. And so she jumps off, and then she practically drowns. That's the craziest thing. She was like, oh, I want to moon dive. And then she almost dies. Well, like, obviously you didn't know what you were doing. Like, the wolves definitely knew what they were doing. Like, they were moon diving and everything like that, and they were doing it right. But then obviously she decides to go and do it, and obviously almost die. So yeah, and then obviously Jacob does pull her out. So this is what I was saying. I feel like, of course, he tries his best to save her, but I mean, because she's obviously like in the depths of depression and just in the really in a really dark place. Like, obviously the scene where she's at the window and the months pass her by, like, yeah, she was in a dark place, and actually nobody could reach her. So it was that kind of thing. And then actually, again, oh my gosh, wait, because earlier when I was talking about her not showing much affection to Jacob, of course, when he jumps up to her window and she starts hugging him and that, we could say that was a bit of her, like, showing him affection, I suppose, because obviously he comes up there and she just, like, clings on to him and starts hugging him, and, like, we're like, that's weird. But, like, obviously she's like, oh, like, I wish I could save you, and I wish I could take you away from all of this. And that's why obviously she ends up going there afterwards, going to his place. And then obviously Jacob and Paul have that fight. So, and that was all her fault, because obviously she decided to go there. How crazy, sorry. Like, obviously this film is also 2 hours. It's 2 hours and 7 minutes. But obviously the first Twilight film is longer, just an extra 10 minutes anyways. But yeah, I really like, also crazy, end credits. I really love the first Twilight movie and its end credits. But yeah, also, we're going to move on, actually, because if I talk about the summary of each film, we're going to be here forever. So I'm just like, and I think you guys, obviously, as Twilight fans, you would obviously know. I'll just pick out key things, because then also what else I wanted to talk about before I move into the next section is, like, what's it called? Yeah, so her being depressed, her being able then to go and save, the best scene in that film, which is obviously when, that is the next section that I was going to move on to. So exactly, that's one of my, in New Moon anyways, that's one of my favorite scenes, when obviously, I have the scene where Bella jumps into the fountain, because I feel like that's a great bit of cinema work. It's also, passion and dedication. I mean, her jumping over it and she's there, like, going to save Edward, is giving like she's a superhero or something. And then another one is, I guess, when Jacob answers the call at Bella's house, and he's like, oh, he didn't ask for you. And, like, Bella's like, you should have let me speak to him. And then obviously he's like, oh, No. Because obviously that's what's crazy. Bella was right in the room as well. And then obviously he just has Edward on the phone being like, oh, Charlie's not here right now. He's hosting a funeral. And we said, what are you talking about? Like, except the fact of the matter is, I think to myself, Jacob didn't actually lie. He just didn't make it crystal clear. That was the thing. And I feel like he did that on purpose. It's because I feel like, of course, in New Moon, yeah, what's his name? Billy Clearwater? Or no, I guess the guy that Charlie was hanging around with, he, what's the word? He died because obviously Victoria killed him. And then obviously they had to do the funeral. So it was like, yeah, Charlie was not there. That was not a lie. But I just obviously mean that Jacob did that on purpose to be like, oh yeah, he's at a funeral and like Bella's dead. Do you know what I mean? He didn't say Bella was dead. When you think about it, we're like, that's Edward's own fault at this point because he just ran with whatever he was thinking, to be honest. Because I guess though it wasn't crazy as well because obviously he had found out that Bella had jumped off a cliff. So that's why I guess one thing led to another. And he kind of just realized that, he kind of just put two and two together, or not even two and two actually, because obviously he came up with the wrong calculation, but more so like he obviously just thought those two made sense, which I might have done the same thing, to be honest. Like, it's just like, it happens. It could have actually been a thing where it's like, he thought that happened. Anyways, again, so we're still on my favorite scenes, right? So obviously then also I feel like favorite scene, Twilight. Let's go back to Twilight again, first movie. Obviously I really like when Edward and Bella pull up together in the car. And obviously, I think Amber? Yeah, Amber's like, oh my God. And we're like, obviously then the music plays and you have Edward in his shades and he's acting all cool because he's pulled up with Bella, and we're just like, oh yeah, whatever. We're just like, you're such an attention seeker. Why have you got your shades on acting like, do you know what I mean? Like you know anything. Do you know what I mean? Like you know anything and like you have ideas. You don't. Like, it's just like he was just acting all of that. Even though the crazy thing about Edward is that just in that moment he acted like he was a fame seeker, although he doesn't like attention on him. But then he also does. That's what's crazy. He also does like it, because even when Jessica was telling Bella about him, obviously he smiled. He had a smile on his face, acting like, oh yeah, he's really special. Anyways, I think one last favorite scene that I have on top of my head, because obviously like this is all from my brain right now. And I said to you guys, I haven't watched the films in a while, so it's a bit hazy. But I feel like one more scene that I have is probably when Bella and Edward do their assist basically in defeating Victoria. That assist was great. Like, honestly, we're like, assist, you think of assist like in football and we're like, wow, then that's a stellar goal. But honestly, their assist in defeating Victoria was just amazing. Obviously Bella pulls off a bit of her top and makes herself bleed in order to be bait and in order to lure Vanessa. I mean, why do I keep saying Vanessa? Victoria. I think it's because it's two V's. But so like that, she obviously pulls it off, and then she's like, oh, and then Victoria comes to her because she wants to eat her, and then obviously Edward's able to do that whole, what's it called? He like flips her over and like yanks her head off. And I think he also, in a way, she dies the exact same way that James did. How cute is that? You know what I mean? They died in the exact same way. Like the idea of getting your head like yanked off. And even when Alice, like I like that scene as well in Twilight, when Alice obviously jumps up on, I think it's Jasper's shoulders or maybe Emmett's, but she jumps on one of their shoulders and she like yanks off she yanks off James's head, and that was just cool. I think also one more scene that I have actually, which is from Breaking Dawn Part 1, was that Rosalie's story. Sorry. I really like Rosalie's story because obviously she was with this guy who wasn't even, I think he did her wrong, and then obviously when she became a vampire, she like obviously came back and got revenge. Yeah, you see, this is what I mean. It says Rosalie is the adoptive sister-in-law of Bella Swan and adopted aunt of Renesmee Cullen, and then as well as the ex-fiance, and that Rosalie was turned into a vampire by Carlisle Cullen. Oh, sorry, super dark, but yeah, she was like mutilated and then on the brink of death by her fiance and his friends, and then she comes back there in her wedding dress, and she's like, and she stands there, and then she kills him as well, and we're like, yeah. That's cool, because obviously it's like it was her getting her revenge on him, which obviously she really wanted. Anyways, okay, so favorite characters in this bit, and obviously I just talk about Rosalie, so Rosalie is one of my favorite characters anyways. Then you also have somebody like Emmett. I really like Emmett because he's really funny. You know, I think I saw something the other day also that with Emmett, like what's it called? They were saying Emmett was waiting for Bella. Like, that's what I think I saw the other day. Might have been on like TikTok. You know, you always see stuff on TikTok. So it was like, oh, Emmett was waiting for Bella. Like, he wanted his like proper like sister, someone who he felt like he actually like resonated with. Or anyways, because maybe he could say he saw Alice as a sister, but obviously Rosalie is his girlfriend. So then it's like he just wanted like another proper like sister, like actually like somebody who he could say, who he could say was his favorite. Who else have I got? Oh my gosh, also Jane. You guys are like, oh, Jane, but I'm like, yeah, Jane, because obviously Dakota Fanning, Jane, but yeah, like, I like Jane because she has a great power. Like, obviously, exactly, Jane has the ability to inflict a mental illusion of burning pain. I really love that. And obviously her eyes are red as well because of, oh yeah, the Volturi, their eyes are red because of how much blood that they consume. And that's always a really interesting, like, I don't know, what do you call it? Kind of like tidbit, I guess, that they put in for us to, I guess, understand vampires. But obviously the redder your eyes are is to do with your diet. And then obviously it's like Edward's eyes change a lot, I feel, also in these movies anyways. Like, even when I was watching a scene earlier, so do you know what I mean? I was prepping. I saw the clip when Edward proposes to Bella, and I think that's an eclipse. And his eyes were like, they were like golden amber, I think. Yeah, they were like golden amber. And obviously, what's it called? Yeah, they were golden amber. So it's like, yeah, exactly. So Edward's eyes are a deep gold or amber color when he is sustained on animal blood. This golden hue indicates that he's a vegetarian vampire and capable of being around humans without harming them. They should have done that in, like, you know, like, because obviously even when I did my episode on vampires, or I did my episode on Interview with a Vampire / Vampires, I was like, what's it called? I was like to myself, oh, like, I always think about the way that they've told vampires in the past, and there's so many different tellings and so many different like facts that you find out. I mean, like, I think the eye thing is really interesting, and you don't have that in stuff like, I don't know, True Blood or like the Vampire Diaries, for example. Like, you know what I mean? I think well, Vampire Diaries, I think, had the thing that I always did like, which was obviously that they get to have daylight rings. I found that really interesting. Do you know what I mean? The daylight ring is cool, but of course, in the Twilight movies, they don't get daylight rings, basically. They're just chilling. And also, no, I guess Edward just glimmers in the sun, and that's about it. He literally doesn't get anything else, but he glimmers in the sun, and that's his way of of the sun but then also, of course, again, you see that in Twilight, because obviously they go out of town, I think, yes, on the really sunny days, because of course they don't want to get any attention. Like, they don't want attention on them, basically. So that's why they decide to like go out and make sure that nobody sees them. Who else? I'm still thinking of any other favorite characters that I have. If not, I'm gonna move on. I'm thinking of favorite characters. Jessica's really annoying, so I'll say that. So that's a no. So is what's his name? Mike. Yeah, Mike's annoying. Like, it's even funny. I remember in New Moon when Jacob gets really annoyed at Mike, and it's like, of course, that was because he was undergoing his transformation, but Mike is annoying. Standard, he's annoying. Like, of course. Like, Mike was always, and you could tell immediately, he was interested in Bella from the very beginning that she came into Forks. We were like, calm down. Like, she just got here. And then also, he couldn't tell that Jessica, he couldn't tell that Jessica was into him, and we were like, what's wrong with you? Like, Jessica has been on your case, but no, you want to date Bella, you want to date her friend. That's really insensitive. It's really insensitive. So I was trying to think about more of my favorite characters, but I don't think I have a lot of them. A lot of the characters in these films, they're a bit annoying. The vampires are more interesting for some reason, you know? The humans, they're all a bit meh, but the vampires, yeah, they're elite. I think, like, who else maybe actually am I thinking in my head? Maybe Eric. Eric was also annoying as well, I can't lie, but like, again, he's also semi-decent. Like, I meant he's annoying, but he's all right. And then again, also, I prefer, obviously, I prefer Amber to Jessica, because Jessica's, like, obviously, like I said, like, really irritating, but I feel like Amber's better. And Amber was also, like, she just seemed really cool, like, do you know what I mean? She had, like, cameras, and like, she was obviously really nerdy, and like, do you know what I mean? I was like, I see myself in you. Do you know what I mean? I feel like that's it. I don't think I have any more, to be honest. But anyways, I'm now going to move on to like part 1 and 2, but like versus each other, because it's like, which film out of those two is better? And it's like, when I was thinking about this section, I was thinking about the fact that, like, when you also think about Harry Potter again, like, and you think about Harry Potter Deathly Hallows Part 1, and you think about Part 2, well, like, again, Part 2 goes over Part 1. Do you know what I mean? Like, if it's in order, like, we're like, Part 1 is better than Part 1. And that's the same for Breaking Dawn as well, because Part 2 is obviously better than Part 1, even though that could be debated, because a lot happens in Part 1, to be honest, where obviously Bella's pregnant, and we see how the pregnancy affects her. We see how much it takes a toll on her body. Exactly. That's, again, back to my favorite scenes. That's also another one, because when Edward sees her in the mirror, that was a really great scene, because you could see that she was all skin and bone, and she barely had any meat on her, because obviously the baby was feasting on her like nothing, or like she was a piece of chicken. Like, it was namming her crazy. It was namming off her. And then also, I think I like the scene in Breaking Dawn Part 1 as well, where then obviously, like, oh yeah, Ed was like, me and you supposed to be partners, remember? And Belle's like, you shouldn't look at it that way. She's like, oh, the baby is part of me and you. Do you know what I mean? Be happy. And he's like, no, if I have to choose you or the baby, I'm choosing you. And we're like, that's the right answer. Do you know what I mean? That is the right answer. Like, you see those sometimes even in shows in general. Like, I feel like, I guess you see them sometimes in like, yeah, medical shows, yeah, where like obviously the guy has to be like, oh, am I going to choose to kill my wife or not? Yeah, am I going to choose to kill my wife or not? Or am I going to choose the baby? And of course, like, I just think, again, with that, as I said, it's always your wife is the right option, because if you choose the baby, then it won't have a mother, unless you want to replace the mother, which is crazy, because no, you obviously want the mother that actually birthed said child. Do you know what I mean? It's more of a connection than just like chucking that baby into another person's arms. And I think they have that whole thing about babies, which is like, you have a window for when a baby's born, and it has to make it has to make a connection in like, I guess, I feel like it's few weeks or a few months at most, where it's like they have to make that stronghold, otherwise they're gonna have lots of different issues when they like become people, like, you know, like, not like as in when they become like more grown up, they'll have problems. But anyways, again, so I feel like exactly is part 2 then part 1, just because, again, also with part 2 you also have the big plot twist as well, and the huge battle scene. And it's like, you know what's good though, I feel, about Twilight, actually? You don't have just one battle scene. You kind of have two. You kind of have like 2 battle scenes, because obviously, what's it called? You have the one in... Yeah, you have the one in Eclipse, and you have the one in Breaking Dawn. So I feel like those are, like, very good. So I was going to move on now to who the household name is in the film, which obviously I feel like could either be Robert Pattinson or Michael Sheen. But then also the guy from, what's the guy from Mortal Instruments and A City of Bones. He obviously plays one of the Volturi. So I feel like you think to yourself, yeah, who is it that we really remember from the films all that much? And I feel like it's probably... it's probably you would probably also think Robert Pattinson, but I think it's not good, obviously, to typecast like roles. You can see how he's broken off from Twilight in the recent years, and he's gone on to do so many other great things rather than Twilight. So it's like, although he's you could also say he is a household name and a reason for watching it, I just feel like a lot of them have come a long way. I don't feel like Taylor Lautner has, though, in honesty, just because he hasn't done like very much since the films. That's what I mean. Obviously, okay, so this is now the final note. So I was going to talk about the music soundtracks. Basically, I think a ranking list of the soundtracks, right, is obviously Twilight, the first movie's number 1, right? Because you have 15 Step that plays in the first film, and then you obviously have what else plays in there? Supermassive Black Hole by Muse. And then what else? I was going to say, then the second one would be Twilight New Moon, which is a great soundtrack because it has Possibility in it. And also, what's it? There's also another one in there, but Possibility is a really, really good one, I feel, in that soundtrack. Obviously, check these soundtracks out for yourself, because why not? And then the last one I feel like is Twilight Breaking Dawn Part 1. I like a lot of the music like in that one as well, because there's also, I think there's what's that song called? Cold in it. Obviously the scene where Bella stands at the mirror, and I feel like that's an amazing scene. Plus the song fits so well. So yeah, we have reached the end of this episode. Thank you so much for listening and obviously also watching. And I will see you in the next one.